Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Well, it is the BJ Show. I'm Brad. That's John Combest. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Combest. That's how you spell his name because you want to be able to go to his website, johncombest.com. Before we get into the regular show, and by the way, I'm playing my own little betting game. I think I know what at least one of the stories in your top three is going to be this morning, but we'll just have to wait and find out, right?
Hey, did you check the odds on your gambling app? Did you check out FanDuel or DraftKings?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I want to essentially say that interesting situation for me. I'm in a new period of my life, and I don't want to go into details, don't want to bore anybody or anything like that, but thanks to several people, and I'm not going to single anybody out to make anybody embarrassed or anything like that, I am moving forward with the radio stations under a great new situation, and I'm very happy about that. And since that I've got my future somewhat out of the dark and out of the puppet master mode, which I had essentially a puppet master who was playing my strings for several years, that's gone. And I'm very happy about that. Now, one other thing that I want to officially launch something, and I want to take this moment just to essentially launch this. And John is going to laugh when I tell him part of this story. But I've started my own church. I've kidded about this for a while. And to the point where after seeing the success of Joy 99 and now Boost and this other company called Educational Media Foundation, which is just a huge hole in the ground that people throw money into, which I'm not, if you do donate to those two, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying I think your money could go elsewhere, but that's a whole other story. I've started my own church, and it's called God Squad, and it's in the cloud. And that's our domain name. Our URL is godsquad.cloud because my church, the God Squad Church, is in the cloud. And I know there are people, and I know that people are going to roll their eyes when I say that. I am Pastor Brad of the God Squad Church, and we have started something brand new that if you need a prayer, we have a prayer line, and you can call 25 God Squad. And I'm not kidding. I'm being serious about this. 25 God Squad, and I will pray for you. Just like I'm praying for Tracy and Rick. Because no, seriously, John. They asked for prayers. On their Facebook page, they asked for prayers. Now, maybe a little bit late because of the fact that apparently they moved their studios from Chesterfield to Wentzville over the weekend, and they were praying that everything went well. And knowing that situation all too well, where there's a lot that could go wrong when you move studio from point A to point B, they're probably still having some shakeout issues. So I am praying for them right now, John.
Does this mean, Brad, that you will stop referring to the current gang of religious broadcasters as the God Squad because you are the rightful owner now of the name God Squad?
I am the God Squad. And
okay, so the other cadre of folks, we won't call them the God Squad anymore.
They're God Squad wannabes. See, we're
there we
go. We're setting now. The interesting thing about this is, for those of you who know me real well, I've been a pastor, reverend, for over 10 years, and people.
And you studied long and hard for that, Brad, at the Church of not Judaism but Buddhism, right? Isn't that where you attended to get that? It was a rigorous process to get that title, right?
Hold up, what was that church again?
Buddhism. It's kind of like the Church of Judaism, but it's focused more on the derriere.
I think I'll steer clear of that. But no, I did study long and hard. And the amazing thing about this is that I had a discussion with someone yesterday, and I've got another announcement to be made later this week, which, once again, someone said to me, matter of fact, just yesterday, someone said to me, well, how did you get to be a pastor? Didn't you have to get a license or something like that? And, John, if you wake up tomorrow morning and feel the calling, you can be a pastor too, because there are no requirements. Zero requirements. Because of the fact that that's going back to our nature of our government, separation of church and state. There's no official recognition of any religious leaders. You can all of a sudden wake up one morning. Now, within various religions, you have the systems that they put in place that you can't just be a Catholic, can't wake up one morning and be a Catholic priest, because
right, you have to have an association with young boys first.
That's John Combest. No.
You have I mean like you have to be a mentor is what I meant, Brad.
Right. Okay. I get it. Oh no. So the idea being that how in the world can you be? And what's interesting about it is people who know me go like, so you're like one of the most least religious people I know. There's a guy used to advertise with us, Chris Highfill, who runs Grace River Church, and Chris talks about the fact that he grew up as an atheist, and he said that his friends would often, when they find out he was a pastor and had his own church, they would say he was the guy least likely to become a successful pastor with his own flock, his own church. So my goal is to be the second most least likely person to have my own flock and my own church. But at this point in time, I don't have a building. More importantly, and this is very important because this is going to turn a lot of people off, John, we don't have a band and we don't have a video wall. So
are you saying I can't go to your church and listen to a cheap knockoff of Nickelback and put my hands in the air?
No, nor can you watch videos on the video wall up on stage. No, we don't have that. It's just
hey, listen, my only recommendation, Brad, I know that we're probably not supposed to talk about this on the air, but I know that in 2028 you were planning on challenging incumbent Republican Governor Bill Eigel in the primary. I'm just telling you, if you put yourself out there as a pastor and you haven't been certified by the Office of Professional Registration, people are going to come after you.
You know, John, it's funny you should bring that up because there's more and more news that the governor race is turning out to be like a three-way heat. You know, did I steal your thunder? Is that one of your top three?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, there will be a poll every other day.
Right.
About the governor's race and funded by one of the candidates and used as a fundraising tool. Yeah, absolutely. Brad, when you talk about throwing money into a hole in the ground, that reminds me of Missouri's vital natural resources, which is our number 3 story today.
Well, let's get right into it. And we bring in this guy.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he starts off with,
in third place.
Brad, let me ask you a really serious question. Are you familiar with what Missouri's official endangered species is?
I saw this list somewhere, and I can't remember any of them, but I did remember reading this recently.
It is actually Missouri's official endangered species is a geriatric radio station owner. But the number 2 official endangered species is the Ozark hellbender. And the Ozark hellbender, according to the Biden administration, Brad, is in big trouble. Do you know what the biggest threat to the hellbender is, Brad?
Now, this is a fish, isn't that this what this is?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Now, what's the biggest threat to it?
Climate change, Brad. Because according to the Biden administration, and I believe this is a U.S. forest. I had the information up here too. According to the Forest Service and in Biden administration officials, which is under the Department of Agriculture and the Biden administration, what could happen is that climate change, you could have a huge, big event, and you could have a giant rock. For example, here's the quote. It's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says, if there's a hellbender underneath a giant rock and you have climate change and you have increased rainfall and then you have increased river flow, you could, quote, if there's a hellbender underneath, say, a 2-meter long rock and it gets moved downstream, there's going to be injury, mortality, and disruption of breeding behavior. Now, to their credit, Jack Suntrup from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch talks to local environmentalists and local people who work in state parks. By the way, this is focused at the 11-Point River, which is kind of, I guess I would describe that as south central, maybe southeast central Missouri. When you talk to local people that actually know about the river, they say, yeah, this really isn't that big of a deal. It's not going to affect breeding that much. It's probably not going to affect tourism that much. It's not a huge deal, including they also talk to the official state herpetologist, which I'm sure Brad wishes had existed when he was spinning disco records. There was no herpetologist that Brad could go to early in the morning. But this is a really great piece, Brad. And in learning a little bit about the Ozark hellbender and learning about how horrible climate change is for the hellbender, I did learn an important fact, which is that under the Biden administration, the head of the U.S. Forest Service, for the first time ever, Brad, is an African American, the first black person to ever lead the U.S. Forest Service. So that's something we could be proud of. It's not like having the first half Jamaican, half Indian president, but it's close, Brad. Maybe someday, kids can walk down a hallway and for 28 days out of a month, they can put this guy's picture up on the wall and we can pretend it matters.
Okay, I got a question. So in other words, what's happening is the feds are saying this is a terrible situation, but the local authorities are going like, no big deal?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So
that doesn't mean, Brad, that, and I bring this up, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't take it seriously. And I know that a lot of times you like to poke fun at the devastating effects of climate change, but it's possible with more weather events, we have rain and a giant rock could be moved in a river and it could affect the breeding of hellbenders.
When you say that, it almost sounds comical, but that was a real dissertation by the feds that was the situation that could happen.
Yeah, and it's among the lead stories in the Post this past today, Brad. I would suggest folks check it out. As always, I have a paywall-free link. It's not as timely as something special that begins today, and that leads us into story number 2.
Is that godsquad.cloud? Is that what?
It is. That's exactly it, Brad.
Okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Early voting begins today, Brad.
That's right.
St. Louis County, St. Louis City, Franklin County, wherever you are in Missouri, you now have no excuse absentee voting beginning today. I should have been more clear probably with that first sentence, because absentee voting started a couple weeks ago. But no excuse absentee voting. So if you go to your local election authority's website, you can check out exactly where you can vote in person. So in most of these, or actually at all of these local election authorities, you can vote in person at the actual election board or whatever they call themselves in your county. And then some counties have a whole host of other places sprinkled throughout the county where you can go and vote. And in fact, Brad, every county has curbside options. So if you have a disability or you're extremely fat, someone from the election board will bring a clipboard out and you can vote from the comfort of your very own car.
Now, once again, this is not just for the metro. This is for the entire state.
That's correct, yeah. And it's a new thing. Jason Rosenbaum did a pretty cool reel about this on Instagram the other day, in that the idea that for a long time you had to manufacture some sort of an excuse for why you were voting absentee. So you would have to lie about how you were going to be out of town or you had some other sort of issue. So one of the, I think most people would consider it an evolution of voting rules, is to allow no excuse absentee voting in person and 2 weeks before the election.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. I think the problem I have with that is that if they run it out like 2 months, because of the fact that, like we had a situation where we just had a change with the, not officially, but soon to be officially, the candidate for president of the United States, where, if, let's say this would have been a month before the election, people would have already voted for Joe Biden, and they go like, well, hold on, he's not even on the ballot anymore. You know what I'm saying?
That's correct, yeah.
Well, so it's 2 weeks. Now, is this for all elections? Is this for like munis and the primaries and the generals?
So that's a great question, Brad. I don't know if this applies to April elections and local municipal elections or not. I imagine it does.
Interesting. Okay. And last but not least,
the number 1.
As expected, Kamala Harris at the top of the list today, Brad, for exciting topics for Missouri Democrats. The media with a trademark after it. Mainstream media, of course, is super excited about Kamala Harris, about the fundraising that she was able to put together very quickly, about Democratic unification. Several outlets in Missouri have stories where they talk to and have conversations with their local delegates to the Democratic National Convention. To their credit, Brad, Two of the KC Star Boys over in Kansas City sat down with Missouri and Kansas delegates and did a survey of 30 of them. And in fact, most of those delegates from the Missouri and Kansas delegation say that they support Kamala Harris. That's probably not a big surprise. And there were a few others, Brad, who said that they're holding out. They're not quite sure. They're not ready to commit yet. So this story, you can expect to see more of these stories from outlets in St. Louis, Columbia, Kansas City, across the state, especially from reporters and content creators who are liberal and progressive in nature. It gives everything they want, Brad. It allows them to show how Kamala is building momentum and no one thought she could unify the party, but she's unifying the party. It also, frankly, gives, if you were a Democrat activist, if you're some lispy cuck in St. Louis City or you're some blowhard in Kansas City, you get an opportunity to puff your chest out and say, well, I'm not sure if I'm with Kamala. I'm going to think about it a little bit. I'll probably be with her, but I don't know. I'm going to hold out. I get to make up my own mind, especially if you're a white male in the Democratic Party. You're probably, you're probably not used to getting to make household decisions or any other decisions, so you probably want to act out and flex a little bit. So it gives these reporters everything they want, Brad. They can talk about how bold and brave Kamala is and how she's unifying the party, and it gives local activists a chance to get a little bit of shine.
I guess, I'm going to go on record as saying this. I said before that and I've been really good at predicting the elections. I predicted the last 4 elections exactly, especially in 2016 when I said Trump was going to win. Everybody went, what? Trump's going to win? I will say right now that I don't think Trump's going to win. I've said it before. I said that Biden was going to get reelected. Well, obviously, I can't say that anymore. I say Kamala will be elected president. That's just my, I think that for exactly what you said, that if they put Corky the Clown up there as a Democrat, that Corky the Clown would be elected. And I'm not putting Kamala into the same category as Corky. I'm just saying that I think that the tribalism of our country has gotten so extreme that no matter who the candidate is, and I especially for the Democrats, not so much for the Republicans, but for the Democrats, whoever's the Democratic candidate, they're going to win. That's all there is to it.
Hey, as we talked about last week, Brad, I think it's appropriate to give credit to 93.3's Ryan Hite, who pointed out Sunday, Brad, that he accurately predicted that Joe Biden would get pushed out and that it would happen very quickly. So shout out to Ryan Hite. He was correct about that.
And you know what? And once again, I'm saying a prayer for Ryan, for him to be able to prosper and grow and be productive at 93.3.
Hey, listen, whatever beef you have with Tracy and Rick doesn't need to apply to a guy like Ryan Hite.
I have no beef. I'm praying for them. Matter of fact, if you missed the very beginning of the show, I announced a couple of different things, but I announced that I've officially kicked off my church, God Squad. You can check it out, godsquad.cloud. And I gave the prayer line, 25 God Squad. And already, John, I have a prayer request. Matter of fact,
I bet you do. I think I know what it is.
I have a prayer request. Someone's always
And Brad, you know what I would suggest too? You know how like during the Jerry Lewis telethons, like the cameras would point over. It was always a Labor Day tradition, remember? The cameras would pan over and they'd have local celebrities answering the phone for like 1 minute while the camera is on them. Wouldn't it be great if on the prayer line for like 1 minute a day, it was like a lottery, you got a chance to actually get Brad Hildebrand on the line?
Well, you can call me right now, direct 314-280-8880. Call me right now, and I'll give you a prayer right now on the phone. How's that?
I bet you will.
You
Brad.
won't have to go through.
Hey, at the end of the show, is there anything different about the? I guess we could say, I don't want to be too specific, but maybe like the updates and ownership. Is there anything different that would come to your stations because of that, Brad?
Yes. We'll talk about that if you want at the end of the show.
Awesome. I'd love to.
Okay.
I think people would be interested in hearing it. Maybe at the end of C Block.
Also, I was wrong. I guessed one of the things would be in your top 3, and it wasn't.
Oh, wow. What was it? Do we want to talk about it in B Block, or do we want to cover it here?
Well, here, let me just throw it out to you, and let's see if you pick up on it. Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt. Does that ring a bell?
Can you be a little more vague?
Okay, I don't think you know what I'm talking about. So we'll pick that up as the number one story in B Block, which I think is sort of a fascinating story, but that's neither here nor there because, John's the guy that's the authority. I'm just the schlub that pushes the buttons. Okay, it's 7:21.
Hi, Fire Chief Steve Mosher here with the Wentzville Fire Protection District. As we were in fire